Do it again. Right back around. Jeez, man. Does anybody anywhere else in this entire media sphere, who else deals with this stuff? I'm sure it's somebody, but for crying out loud, guys, I have a gigabyte fiber connection that's directly plugged into my computer that is completely up in the, right now I can see it, but somehow these things just crash and break down in the middle of our conversations. It's just so hilarious to me. Well, so be it. As always, we'll just keep going.
Let me preface these remarks with I never, ever believe Israeli figures. I've been in the government too long to know that the Israelis are patent liars in their intelligence community, in their propaganda community, certainly, and in their leadership. They are inveterate liars. Let me say that again. They are liars. So
my father told me when I was a child, people in authority lie. And we all, if we are going to continue.
Yes. Good note from RFK Jr. as he's in authority and lying to you. Never stops on this plot, on these. It's just so crazy to me. So anyway, back to what we were talking about. The idea that this was a discussed, acknowledged strike. They told you we were going to do this because that's our legal right if you illegally bomb us. All on the record, and yet they just lie to Americans. Very simple, guys. Every single time.
They were getting ready to attack others. You see? Kuwait. Nobody expected that.
Apparently not. Nobody expected what I told you 30 seconds ago. Was it going to happen? What are you, crazy? Yeah, apparently so. And keep this because this will become more relevant, guys. This is a legal document that's on the record proving that they knew that they were going to illegally attack them or suspected and that they were not planning to respond or rather attack first. But they told you we would respond if you take this act. And it's exactly what they did. They literally turned around and said those legal responses they told you they were going to take, or didn't say that part, but those are illegal terrorist attacks against our allies. There's such gross dishonesty in this. It's just beyond the pale. Now, as we told you before, as Ryan Rosbiani's pointing out, they came out and said about Trump that it was a feeling. That's what Leavitt said. It was a feeling based on the facts, is what she said. Well, the feeling means it's your opinion. It's based on the facts or not. So there you go. Add this to the court of conversation. There is no legal imminent threat. If there's ever any honesty in this conversation, if there's ever any legal accountability, all of these are on the record. They're just because they're bad at this. Also, here's what Trump said about how he was told to do this because Kushner said. But apparently that's evidence of an imminent threat because Kushner, and what you kind of insinuated is that's his fault because he misled me because that's what good leaders do.
Situation was very quickly approaching the point of no return, and the United States found it intolerable, in my opinion, based on what Steve and Jared and Pete and others were telling me.
Yeah, the liars, the ones who've been proven to have lied in the conversation, who were called out by the other diplomats in the conversation, who the foreign minister of Oman quite literally told you are lying to you about what's going on, and that's when they were about to give up their enrichment and everything else, and they bombed them the next day. Every part of this conversation is very clear, and you can easily prove it.
Marco, so involved, found it intolerable, in my opinion, based on what Steve and Jared and Pete and others were telling me. Marco, so involved.
Yeah, good guys, right?
I thought that they were going to attack us. I thought they would.
All the people, by the way, that the same MAGA team right now told you were rhinos and were always lying and hated Trump, and they were, but yeah, now Marco, he's the one. He knows. He's also on the board of peace. Is going to control our totally not globalist future. Hashtag winning.
If we didn't do this at the time we did it, I think they had in mind to attack us. And
oh yeah. So you think maybe we kind of maybe, but imminent threat. The evidence is absolute. What Leavitt says, but it's national security now. Gabbard can't tell you. Now, just to be clear, it shouldn't always be like a dismissive, like facetious thing where it's like I'm kind of making fun of it. But the reason I'm doing that is because this is ridiculous. This is not some like articulate debate about the nuance of what the data shows. This is just whole cloth lies as they get caught from day to day lying to you. And then we're supposed to engage with this like it's not a joke. No, guys, no, this is dumb. And these people are obviously dishonest. We just got to be real about that, because if you can catch them lying the next day, then why are we even debating whether they're liars? It's pretty simple. Based on what Jared said. Well, that's good advice. Well, of course, Eric Dougherty, just in, the big thing, we're winning. Whatever the team just said. Ratcliffe is asked, Now, what we just went over the information, just today. Just what I showed you alone today is enough to make you understand that they're lying about this. But you can go back through all the last shows we did since March 1st, and it's very clear from the very beginning. I'll even play what Rubio said in a second again, that this is not the case. Don't forget, Gabbard said in 2025 that they are not seeking a nuclear weapon. The International Atomic Energy Agency have said every year since ever doing this, that they're not doing that, and they can confirm through their watertight system that that's not the case. And yet, here's what Ratcliffe has to say. And what you're going to see right here is some kind of coordinated. I'm going to rattle off 5 questions that are basically everything we've already proven is not true in this very setting, but I'm just going to answer directly. And then this gets clipped and put out. And that's what you're going to see right now. All of the team that wants to blindly pretend like we're all being lied to by Democrats about what Iran's really doing, even though they also support the war, because that totally makes sense, that ultimately this is the truth. That what Ratcliffe just says out loud, despite the evidence, is what we should believe because Democrat lies or whatever, even though they're all dishonest.
Iranian regime committed to America's destruction, in your opinion?
Yes.
Does the Iranian...
Let's just, first point. Are they committed to the destruction of America? Okay, based on what? Have they ever done that? No. Is there any evidence other than what you guys say they want to do? No. Other than the funding of groups that in fact are not actually proxies that you claim are, but are not the reality, or groups that you in fact have funded yourself? No. The idea is insane to in any way insinuate that they've designed to destroy America. Then why haven't they taken that opportunity? You've literally, and this is actually really important. I just said this to somebody the other day. Take a second and think about this. What happened just now or the first and afterward? We're told this is a terrorist organization that is designed to kill to kill everybody in America and kill every Jew. And they've got secret nuclear weapons, or they're almost there. They got missiles aimed at us and they want to kill everybody. Okay. Let's just pretend for conversation's sake that that's the reality. So then let's walk through what happened. So then Donald Trump and Israel, even if you want to pretend they were out to attack us, bombs them. Right? Okay. So then what does that do? Well, that gives them the legal opportunity to do everything they told you they wanted to do. So you're telling me all this time they've had these secret, nefarious plans to do this illegally. And then you bomb them and you give them the legal opportunity to bomb everybody. And what do? They don't do that. There's not been a single bombing inside the United States. They bombed bases because they're legal targets because you guys illegally attacked them. They bombed in Israel because Israel's continued their entire lives to attack them. They bombed but where's the belligerent, mindless attacking of innocent people? Where's the terrorist attack? Well, guess who is doing that? Israel, the United States. Guess who's using white phosphorus and cluster munitions? Israel, the United States. Guess who's constantly lying to you with psychological operation? Israel. So just think about the opening. If you want to believe they were willing to do all these crazy things, you gave them the legal pathway to bomb everywhere. And they didn't. I just don't know how much more clear this can get. And that's not about good guy, bad guy. It's about the fact that they've lied about this country, this government, the people of Iran, and that at this moment, they have self-interest. And their interests are telling them that this is not going to work out for them if they do that. So they don't do it. They don't mine the strait. They don't bomb the Strait of Hormuz. They simply they use threats to keep them hindered while letting everybody else come through. We'll get to that too. And the point is that if they were what they said, they wouldn't be doing any of this. Now it's in their interest to make sure that they don't give them the justification. That's not terrorism. That's not lunacy. That's tactics. I just hope that really breaks through for people, because it's these easy to see basic points that really just bring it all together. And so on that very point, back to this clip, you've got Ratcliffe being asked, are they hell-bent on destroying the government, the U.S. the country? And yes, simply, okay, I'd love to see some evidence on that. And if the evidence is the State Department says, well, it's never happened. They never try. It's the same thing. It's tiresome.
The Iranian regime committed to America's destruction, in your opinion?
Yes.
Does the Iranian regime have American blood on their hands since its founding in 1979?
Yes.
Very broad way to frame that. And that's thousands, the same number we always talk about. And what is it? You want to tell me in the chat? I'm sure you remember. It's when U.S. government illegally invaded Iraq. Anyone debate that? Anyone disagree with that framing? The lies about WMDs? And guess what? Soleimani and Iran supported Iraq in the resistance of that illegal invasion. We literally can prove that. That's on Wikipedia about the dynamics. And yet then when you point out the fact that that's where they were killed, they never do that, you see, because they don't want you to recognize that. They call them terrorists. So you're telling me that if Mexico invaded Texas and then people, the people in Texas fought off the invasion of Mexico, would they be terrorists? Obviously not. nor are the people defending the invasion of Iraq when you're doing it illegally. But that's the game, guys. Did they kill American thousands? Well, as even Harrison pointed out the other day, bee stings kill more people in a given year than you claim Iran's killed Americans over our entire lifespan. They're just gaslighting you. And on top of that, again, the numbers they're talking about are people that were killed in an illegal invasion. So you can't make anything out there. And then they assassinated Soleimani in Iraq under the guise of that, him being the bad guy, when in fact he's been the only power center, really in earnest, the element that's been fighting ISIS on the ground, while they've been, as we just showed you, supporting them across the countries.
Has Iran plotted assassination attempts against Americans on American soil?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so this is based on what even Tucker Carlson told you was intelligence that came from Israel. And the New York Times verified that for themselves. Question all of it, guys. I do too. But what I'm always pointing out is what you got is that versus what Ratcliffe says or what Trump tells you. That's not evidence, guys. That's statements. Well, I guess it's still evidence, but it's not high quality evidence. It's subjective. It's a personal statement of somebody involved. What we can see is that this has been something that's been manufactured. I mean, are we really pretending like what happened in Butler was not ridiculously obvious? It's obvious that we've been lied to this entire time. The point is that the lie of Iran trying to assassinate him literally came through Israeli intelligence. That's on the record. But yeah, sure. Why not? Because they said so.
Was Iran developing a nuclear weapon prior to our military action last June? And did Iran remain committed to developing a nuclear weapon in the lead up to this conflict?
Yes. So I want to clarify on that.
So yes, the answer is no, by the way, of all the evidence, including from his own department. The information shows the opposite, but he said yes out loud. So all the MAGA people who want to, rather the dishonest people who aren't even trying to make America great again, but call themselves MAGA, who are in the Republican Party, are the ones pushing this today. Because it's a one-stop shot of all the questions that disagree with what we're proving today.
Because there's been much talk about a fatwa against the development of a nuclear weapon.
Can you come back to that 1 second?
Of course, don't get into that. We don't want to know that, which means they have a religious reason based on their own their religious beliefs to not ever seek a nuclear weapon, which you can prove that exists. Whether they care about it or not is a different question. But historically, you can see that they do and haven't done that based on the evidence, as always, what we can see in front of us. Could there be a secret bomb somewhere? Of course. I'd love to be able to prove that. If you have evidence, then not just statements from people that have always lied to us, well, let's talk about it. But that's how this game is always played.
Yeah, you bet. Okay. If left unchecked, do you think Iran would have the ability to develop missiles capable of reaching the United States?
Yeah.
Missiles. Capable? Do you mean like literally every government in the world has missiles and ICBMs that can go as far? Yes. So the only real argument is they have the ability to fight back, and we can't allow that.
Yes.
Did Israel force the U.S.'s hand and make us take action, as some have claimed?
No.
No. Very well done. Fact-based, okay, so because he just responds with one-word answers, we're supposed to act like that just buried. That's what they're doing today.
Dr. Gabbard, do you agree with the CIA director's assessment on that last question in particular?
Okay, and she says yes, even though she just told you that's not the case. She literally told you that they weren't seeking nuclear weapons, but she answers yes. There's no misunderstanding this. Something's driving this, whether it's just Trump pressuring them or something else. She just literally under oath lied to you based on what she said before. Even what she said in this hearing contradicts what she just answered yes on. How pathetic. That's your legacy, Tulsi. Good for you. Eric Dougherty, yay! Whatever the team said that day. Tulsi Gabbard again. Are the goals of Israel aligned with the goals of the United States? Well, let's get into did Israel drive this and whether Israel's influencing this government. Here's what she had to say about this. And like we even need to play this video. Quite clearly, the answer is what Trump says our agenda is quite different than what Israel is openly doing. That should matter to people, especially since it's now becoming clear that Israel is the one driving this war. But understand, my mind is that this is the same thing. Right? And all you're getting is that Trump is just telling you what you want to hear while being well aware that Israel's the one deciding how this goes. That's my belief.
So my question is, what does the intelligence community assess Israel's goals in this war to be? And are those goals aligned with the goals of the United States?
I'm thinking carefully here about what can be said in this open setting versus a closed setting.
Of course.
Are the goals aligned?
I mean, it's a very
objectives
question. Yes or no. You won't reveal any inside information. You have to understand why she's being careful right there. I think we all know.
That have been laid out by the president are different from the objectives that have been laid out by the Israeli government.
Yep. even though that doesn't change his support, does it?
And how do they differ?
We can see through the operations that the Israeli government has been focused on disabling the Iranian leadership and taking out several members, obviously beginning with the Ayatollah.
Which, by the way, despite their lies, Trump was absolutely in support of. And the evidence clearly shows that he knew about him beforehand. Despite the team sport lying on Twitter today, despite what she said, you can prove this. It's been widely covered, both from his own administration and many different reports covering this based on the, what was it again? I'll bring up the article in a second. There's plenty of clear evidence showing you that this was on the record beforehand, including Israel themselves telling you that this was planned out. Or you could point to the Kurds being funded and armed for the very purpose of this process a month before, while they were pretending they were in peace negotiations.
The supreme leader, and they continue to focus on that effort.
How does that differ from our goals?
The president has stated that his objectives are to destroy Iran's ballistic missile launching capability, their ballistic missile production capability, and their Navy, the IRGC Navy.
Oh, so just normal things that every country is allowed to have, but it's only bad when Iran does it. So not nukes, no, just their missiles, which, by the way, is because that's just what Israel moved into. Well, their missiles are bad too because they're bad guy. Yeah, very, very articulate. I mean, that's what we're ultimately getting, is that just they can't have those because they do bad things. Not really, though. Not that I can see, and as you're committing genocide, by the way. But okay, so their interests are not aligned. That's pretty obvious. And even she just told you, no, they have different agendas. Okay, well then explain something for me. One, are we only just finding this out? And if so, that's pretty embarrassing, right? That you lumber us into this action and to commit U.S. soldiers that you told us would never happen, and now the people are dying. You told us would never happen, and boots in the ground. You told us would never happen. Did it all happen at once? Or were these increasingly changing steps? And at what point did you continue to support Israel, even though you knew they did not have the same agenda, if that's even the truth? I'm just making a point here, right? Okay, well, the last time you sent them, what was it, $10 billion? Was that because they were not agreeing with your agenda, or because you didn't care whether it was the same path? I mean, you just can't miss this stuff. If the case was that Israel was conducting something against what Trump wanted, why does he keep funding them? You know why? Because I don't think he has even a choice at this point. But either way, that shows you that it's one of two things. He's either bound to continue supporting them, whether or not he literally spits in our face, does whatever he told us they weren't going to do, drags the U.S. government into yet another war, or he was always in line with that. And it's just a lie to make you think that he wasn't. I don't know how else to look at that. The bottom line is that I think that my opinion is that they're both conducting this war. Rather that, it's the same entity we're talking about here. But that from Trump's perspective, he needs to project that he's the one controlling everything and that it's not the case. And I think that's what explains this in my mind, is that what she's telling you is that what Trump's yelling is just not what's happening. Because the real agenda is what Israel's doing, and that Trump won't push back on that. Now, that may change based on how much they continue to get hurt by this. Even if they are bound or he's blackmailed or whatever, there's always a breaking point where you can just recognize that no matter how much pain they can do to me, if I keep going this path, I'm going to lose everything. That's what I kind of think we're getting to right now. And I'll go into that more in a second.
Wait,
what was that last part? Did I miss that? Hold on. Oh, that was the very end of it.
RGC Navy and mine laying capability. Their ballistic missile.
Oh, so see, this is funny. Basically, you're going to stop their mine laying capabilities. What does that even mean? So being unable to make basic, like just bombs, mines, or the ability to put them in the water, or, it's such benign. Why not just ban guns or whatever? No, you're not even allowed to have training. It's like, why not just go all the way? Because that's what they're doing. There's no logic in this. There's no legal justification to claim a government can't have things that everybody else has. It's just because they want to control this. And apparently they know that Israel wants this, and that's enough for everybody to ignore the basic realities of fundamental international law. So Candace Owens and plenty of other massively influential people, like I've been showing you for a very long time, and every day there's more of them, are coming out and saying MAGA's dead, Trump has changed, everything's different. It's not. He's the same person. It's just becoming more clear. Rather, my argument is that it's now impossibly obvious, and they know that everybody largely has come to understand this. And so whether this is that or she's calling out herself, there are people that then come out to try to release that valve and say, yes, like like I'm getting to with Glenn and Alex, it's, well, yes, we see it now too, even though they've spent the last year trying desperately to keep you to not see that. The point now becomes, but keep supporting it, because we have to work our way through for the freedom of the country. Whatever their narrative is, it always comes down to keep doubling down. He literally even says double down in his clip. I played it yesterday. But my point here is that what they're calling out is the Zionist influence on this government. Everyone sees it, guys. It's literally every part of the conversation now. Even the mainstream is being forced to grapple with this. And Candace writes, read in between the lines, because this comes out from New York Post, just like telling us literally from CNN that 100% of people on Trump's side support what he's doing. 100%. Somebody pointed out the joke yesterday that Kim Jong-un got reelected with 99.3%. Kim Jong-un in a place that we literally, like, even they have the insight to be able to go, well, let's not make it 100 because that's just obvious. It's just, you don't get 100% in any sense. That's never the reality in polls or mathematics, because there's always some kind of variable. 100% means you made a mistake. That's kind of just classic understanding, or that you're lying to us, or that you just gamed it to such a degree that you literally said, who are you voting for? Okay, here's a poll, that kind of thing. But it says Republicans overwhelmingly back Trump over Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly around war. What that means is they support the war, because that's what this is about right now. They do not. Other than Eric Howdy, Benny Johnson types, which are just, we should just be laughing, rolling on the ground, laughing at these people today. It's pretty clear that nobody supports this. I've been telling you that long before that was even as clear as it is now, because I felt that was the reality. And I'm not afraid to make my arguments based on the facts, even when nobody else is saying it. Read in between the lines, she writes. Trump is angry and they need to show him something positive, which would imply that he's being handled, cowed, and maybe not aware of that. Now, I'm worried about that kind of sentiment, because I think it's important that we have, we should not assume that he's not aware of what he's doing. That's not in our interest, even if it's the case. So we can prove that he's accountable, guys, and he always will be anyway, because of 1,000 other reasons. But it says Zionists are now moving to Pravda, publishing fictional polls, which I agree with, so they have something positive to put on his desk in the morning. This is like Loomer telling him that 90% support him, and that's what you end up hearing from him, even though it's provably not the case, because he's being handled by people who are not acting in American interests. No one, she writes, Candace Owens, no one supports the war outside of a never-Trumpers. No one supports this war outside of never-Trumpers who have always been Israel first. Think about that. Never, like Ben Shapiro, like Mark Levin, who quite literally, I mean, this was, I don't remember the date actually, but said, I will never vote for Donald Trump. There's headlines, articles that were put out like that. And then when it was in their interest, they gravitate towards him, like Thiel and Karp and everybody else, Israel to either side of the paradigm. It's about the real agenda. So these people are now the ones that are MAGA, apparently. And that's some of these other genuine MAGA people, whoever you think that may be, the ones that actually, whoever it is. My point in saying that is people who genuinely want to make America great again. And we may even disagree on what that means. Whether or not we disagree about immigration or whatever else, the point is none of us are getting what was promised. Because even what they think they want, even if I disagree with that, that's not what Trump is giving them. So everyone's being played. And I think that's what's starting to happen. And the only ones going along with it are the dishonest ones who are getting what they want. And it's not Americans, or rather, at least not people who are fighting for American interests. And it says they are losing the war badly. And I agree with that. I just don't think we can prove that right now. Like, there's a lot of information up in the air, but what I'm seeing, that's the impression I'm getting, and seek to further delude Trump into believing his base wanted this. That's certainly possible. I mean, how can you ignore a Tucker Carlson or even a Megyn Kelly, somebody who told you that Palestinians would rather watch their children starve to death than allow a Jew to live? Like, she made those statements, and yet now she's suddenly calling out what Trump is. Something is off. I think opportunism, probably, because they know that we are right. Megyn Kelly, she said this yesterday. You want to rip the GOP apart right to its core? Yes, please. Same with the other side. But it says, and prevent a single America First voter from participating in the midterms? What does that even mean? And it says, indict Joe Kent and Tucker Carlson. See how that works out. Because this is now centered around not just the war, not even just Zionism in Israel, but around Joe Kent and the idea that he came out and did something that is objectively honorable. Even if you disagree with his intentions, the point is you can prove what he said was correct. And he came out and he said, I can't in good conscience support this because there was no imminent threat. Now, even if he is a diehard Israel supporter, the point is that or however you want to look at that. Like, I argue this comes down to the Zionism issue that we talk about with Charlie Kirk. that a lot of these people are clearly, if you listen to his interviews, he still supports Trump. He still largely, I think, he still supports the partisan agenda, the Iran bad guy narrative. However, they want to see it as Trump and America first making that happen, not Zionism and Netanyahu puppeteering Trump to make that happen, even if they get the same result. You see what I'm saying? And I think that's a huge part of this. And so you're getting this divide where they're you're going after Joe Kent, you're going after Massey. Like, you guys are showing what you actually are. And whether Megyn Kelly cares or not, this is what people are now seeing. That is the majority of the conversation. So you're going to get the profiteers and opportunists who lumber into it and act like they always saw it every time. But either way, the point is, I'm glad it's happening because people see it. You understand? Now, here is The Guardian. We showed you this before. UK security advisor who attended the talks with Iran, who literally told you, and this is the foreign minister of Oman. We'll give you some points on that second, sitting with Witkoff and Jared Kushner. And what did the UK element say about these two? So this is an ally of the United States government. One Gulf diplomat with knowledge of the talks said, well, I guess the implication was this was from that side of the conversation, but one of the people involved, we regarded Witkoff and Kushner as Israeli assets that dragged a president into a war he wants to get out of. Again, I don't believe he wanted to get out of this, guys. I don't believe that for a second. You can see his own rhetoric before telling you Iran had to be taken out. So why would he be telling you that running up to, after the election, but when the conversation was being driven by Israel, he kept telling you, we have to go after Iran. So if he wanted to get out of it, why would he be saying that in the first place? But either way, it's the point is that people see that these two are very clearly working for something other than U.S. interest. I think Trump is too, but take the point you can. So Glenn also points out Netanyahu and America's Israel loyalists have long been clear that their supreme goal was to lure the U.S. government into a war to destroy Iran. Yes, this is basic understanding if you're not a blind partisan follower. Israel's key adversary, once Saddam was gone, was Iran. That the Jake Tappers and the ADLs want to suppress this very point as somehow anti-Semitism is pathetic, and it will fail. And this is what Justin Logan points out. Do not say Israel pushed for this war. But also, here's what the Foreign Financial Times literally reported. For Netanyahu, the war that ultimately ensued was the culmination of a mission that has defied his decades-long career in politics to anchor the U.S. in a confrontation with Iran. It's not true because the media says it. It's true because it's provable. It's like saying the sky is blue. He's been openly telling you this his entire career. And again, the direct quote that we played for you right after this started. This alliance with the U.S. allows us to do what I have been hoping for 40 years, which is to drive the U.S. to attack Iran, guys. This is obvious. And he says, strike the regime squarely in the face. Netanyahu said this from they claimed it was the roof of the IDF headquarters. People argued he'd left the country. But either way, how to misunderstand this? I'm glad that people like Glenn and others are having the courage to call this out. He's a Jewish person himself. So understand how difficult that is to be pushed back on by other people who believe they're fighting for Judaism and are misguided about it. Either way, whether you think it's the case or not, how can you reconcile that with killing innocent children? Just don't know how anybody can make sense of that. Now, also, Lindsey Graham, Wall Street Journal has exposed that Lindsey Graham was coaching Israel on how to convince Trump to go to war with Iran. Now, this is actually why this is a very easy thing to see. We know he's been doing this. What's now come out is that there's behind the scenes information about how before we got here, Lindsey Graham was going to Israel and going, here's what you need to say to get Trump to think this is in our interest. Yes. And yet he's been endorsed by Donald Trump. Not Massey, you understand, but this guy, the one that they all called a rhino and that everybody hates. But apparently that's MAGA because that's what he said. This has just never been more clear. How in the world is this U.S. politician going to be going to a foreign power and convincing them, telling them what they need to say to trick or convince the president of his country into a war for their interests? This guy should be put in prison. Guys, I mean, that's borderline treasonous. I mean, you could just basically call that treason if you understand what's happening right now. And then I want you to think about this yet again. I'll show you again in a second. For the podcast, it's this same meme. That I'm sorry if you feel insulted by this, and I'm not trying to make it about the literal citizens of Israel. I'm trying to make it about the government and what ultimately is the outcome, which is that what you end up with is that government driving our government into a war, and you end up with what we told you. Flag-draped coffins coming back while Israelis sit back and watch. Now, look, there's been Israelis that have been killed by the bombings. I'm not trying to diminish that. What I'm trying to highlight is the ongoing war, not just the bombings that hit in locations, but the ongoing war, the deployments, which are already happening to the island or otherwise, the Kurds on the ground, the people who were there before. Americans have already been dying. Iran argues that's about 3,500. Of course, the U.S. disagrees. It's probably somewhere in the middle. But what was the thing we said in the beginning? This is how we would end up, whether Israelis or not, that Americans would be dying for a war that is not in our interest. And they said, no, that's not going to happen. We're not even going to do boots to the ground. It's limited strikes. It's about stopping their leader. All the same talking points. And then they extended it, just like every war we've ever been through. And now what are we doing? Every day we're hearing about more Americans dying, more Americans deployed, while Israel's government sits back and lets it happen. Now, I'm talking about their government, not just every Israeli in the world. Understand what I'm saying, but that is the case, that their government is letting it be fought by U.S. interests. You can't deny that. Why is America first okay with that? Now, here's what Clint Russell had to say, and this is kind of a mixed bag on this, where, of course, Trump comes out and says, Israel, out of anger for what has taken place in the Middle East, whatever that means, like because they responded. He's trying to make it sound like Iran's just attacking indiscriminately. But he says has violently lashed out, and we'll talk about this in a second, at a major facility known as the South Pars gas field in Iran, which is, there's parts of it that are also owned by Qatar. Now, early arguments where that wasn't damaged, but now there's later reports that are showing that it was in fact damaged, and Qatar's not happy about that. Which, by the way, led to a massive spike in gas prices, which I think is now, I think the Brent crude was over 110, I think last I checked. I forget what it is now. Now, what he keeps promising you, it's going to go down. Well, that's not going to happen when Israel keeps deliberately making sure it doesn't. Because this is not an accident, guys. And this is designed to make this problematic for Americans so they then can turn this into Iran is making this happen for all of us. And so we have to fight Iran. I'm telling you, that's how basic this is. At least in one part of it, there's many moving parts. But he says a relatively small section of the whole has been hit. The United States knew nothing about this particular attack. Well, there you go, seeing as how they're making the decisions. And in the earlier parts of this, when you were talking with Iran and offered a ceasefire on day 2, and they denied it through Italy, that's all publicly available. And Israel spoke up and said, why are you talking to them without us? And the White House told them they wouldn't do it anymore. Also easy to look up. And so here we are, where Israel's carrying out the attacks that represent their joint war without even talking to Trump. And it says, or at least that's how he says it. It could very well be that he's using this, like I'm going to get to make it seem like he's, calling out Israel, even though he's still funding them and still supporting what they do every single day. But it says the United States knew nothing about this attack. And the country of Qatar, it was in no way, shape, or form involved with it or did have any idea it was going to happen. Well, we don't know that for sure. Ultimately, unfortunately, Iran did not know this or any of the pertinent facts pertaining to the South Pars attack and unjustifiably and unfairly attacked a portion of Qatar's LNG gas facility. That's not what appears to have happened. You see, the argument appears to be this was bombed by Israel, and this is his effort to make it out that somehow Iran responded by bombing in the same location. Like that would make sense. Now, technically, these are separate things, but you have to understand why would their mindset be that Qatar's the one that bombed a location that it's in their interest to not bomb? This is just lazy arguments in my mind. I think this is quite clearly Israel doing what it's continued to do, bombing oil fields that caused chaos for Lebanese people, for Iranian people, for everyone in the world, and hoping you just lazily blame Iran. Like every other thing they're doing. Starvation, they're killing everyone. What's you guys doing those things? Their money's collapsing. Look how bad they are. You guys are sanctioning them. It's just they can't even manage their oil infrastructure. You're sanctioning them. Like it's so lazy. But that's what seems to have worked from the past. So I guess they keep going. No more attacks will be made by Israel, he says, which, by the way, has already been proven to be false. So he wants you to think I'm so in control because it's in capitals. No more attacks. And while he's writing this, Israel keeps attacking. Pertaining to this extremely important, valuable South Pars. Well, that location, you could argue. But my point is that if Israel wanted to, they'd bomb it right now. And you damn well know it. And it says, in which instances the United States of America, with or without help or consent of Israel, will... It's weird that he says consent, isn't it? Aside from coordination or discussion, consent, meaning that up until this point, they've been getting the consent of Israel is basically the way you would read that. But no longer. But I still doubt that. And it says, I do not want to authorize the level of violence and destruction because of the long-term implications that it will have on the future of Iran. But if, always fantastic, Qatar's LNG is attacked again, I will not hesitate. Great. So Israel attacks it again, blames Iran, and suddenly just everything. You can see how this goes. We're getting into the false flag territory here, which I'm convinced is already happening. You have to understand that what he just said First of all, which I believe is based on a misrepresentation, is that if they bomb it, I don't want to do the thing that will destroy all of Iran. Why is that even the framing? But if they attack this one location, I'll just going to do that. I don't even believe that's what's going to happen. This is just him muscling his blustering narrative as he pounds his chest while showing weakness as usual. But here's what Clint says. They are simultaneously calling Joe Kent a liar while the president is openly chastising Israel for escalating the war with Iran. No, he's not. I mean, are we at the point, journalists, where we just blindly accept what Trump says as the reality? Good journalism. The point here, guys, is Trump is telling you what he wants you to hear, as he always does. Consider that it could be the reality. But as we know, Trump was well aware of this. They were well aware of because it was planned. And he says, seems to me that Joe Kent told the truth and you're all cashing in $7,000 checks. Sir, because that's just the thing. Apparently, it's all $7,000 and everyone's doing it. It's a sentiment. It's a meme. Yes, there was examples of $7,000 coming from Israel, but that's why that became a token conversation that then makes us all look ridiculous for claiming that somebody's being influenced or funded by Israel, because it just becomes an allegation that gets floated with no verification, and it's always $7,000. But the point is to make the sentiment, but let's care about the facts and care what we can prove. But overall, as Dominic Michael Trippi points out, he's flatly lying. Trump, big surprise. He not only knew about it, but approved the strikes. Only after seeing how bad of a decision it was did he publicly reverse course, because it was a majorly bad move. This is because the gas price, the Brent crude shot up, the gas price, it's not smart. Israel probably convinced him somehow that it would be in his interest. While Qatar didn't know of the Israeli attack in advance, Trump did, according to Israeli officials. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Trump coordinated about the strike, and aim was to try and deter Iran from continuing to disrupt oil supply. Of course, by doing that, you bomb oil supplies. Totally makes sense. But you have to understand, guys, at the very least, this is what Israel's telling you. They could be lying. But then ask yourself, why is Israel counter-signaling the leader of the United States and claiming that he told them about these? Because either he wants them to look that bad and Trump still doesn't call him out for it, or it's the truth and Trump is trying to lie to you. Either way you pick, it still shows you the reality here. Now, what I want you to highlight here is chastising Israel for being against his will. So what I'm reading into right now that you're getting is the sentiment that, of course, Trump is against it now. And he's being, he's going to push back on Israel. And ultimately, I just don't think that's where we are. And as well as the fact that I showed yesterday from him and others, the sentiment is, what happened? Why did he suddenly change? But he didn't. As I said, we were telling you this was the person back in 2025. We were called blackpilled for it, right? So you knew because we told you. So it's not some brand new sentiment. It's clearly what we already warned was going to happen. So anyone claiming they're shocked and surprised by this new sentiment that's not new at all is either, I guess, this should reflect on their ability to see things in basic reality until they're told to look at it, that's not a journalist, by the way, or we're talking about, well, I mean, I think where was it? There was one other thing, the real point that I was going to give you more thoughts on, but then I just lost it. What was that? Shoot. Anyway, so the general sentiment, back to the other post about this, was the reality that we're talking about Israel influencing this government and giving them the pass. Like the idea that somehow Trump is being played by Israel, therefore he's not responsible for all of the actions. That was the end point, but I was going to make another point there. And I just lost the thread. But this was the one I wanted to end with because this builds to the next clip, which is that's what they're actually doing right now. Now, I'm not suggesting he's doing that, but that's the sentiment that's circulating, which he's sort of leaning into, whether he knows that's what it's going into or not. That's what happens in partisan media. But this guy, Glenn Beck, I just can't believe this because we just